Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III, and today I'm sitting down with the man that every entrepreneur needs, Mr. Cole Taylor. How you doing, man?
What's going on, RJ? Good to be here. Doing real good.
So for the people that don't know who you are and why you're here, because I was very vague intentionally with the title, the starting line for entrepreneurs. Tell everybody what it is that you do.
Yeah. So my name's Cole Taylor. I'm a health and performance coach for CEOs, entrepreneurs, executives, really focusing on how do we not just get people in shape, because that's important, but more importantly, how do we fix the inside health for them? As entrepreneurs, we think so much that if I just get my business at this point, then I can focus on my health. But I'm here to kind of flip that script for people that if I can get myself healthy, if I have more energy, more confidence, more mental clarity, what happens is my business actually grows and every other area of my life grows because I can show up at a different level. So I'm very passionate about getting entrepreneurs and executives to themselves grow so that as a result, things grow instead of trying to drag this anchor of a body around.
I love it, man. For the sake of protecting your client stuff, a good friend of both of ours and a client of yours, I
Yeah.
was talking to him and he said, essentially, you wanted to hire him as a coach, but you looked at him and you said, honestly, man, I can't really work with you because like you're not taking care of yourself. So how could you coach me if you're not even taking care of yourself? Talk about that a little bit because I think this is something that like entrepreneurs like we naturally neglect, we don't talk about. So why was that so important to you from a coaching perspective to be like, hey man, someone that's out of shape, like that's not really a good representation for you to be coaching me.
Yeah, I think, just taking a step back, our world is super surface level and superficial. And so you make judgments, whether you know it or not, based off of the first impressions you have with people, how they
Right.
dress, how they carry themselves, their weight's a part of that, their facial expressions. But for me, I judge people a lot, good or bad, off of how they take care of themselves. And I believe your body is a reflection of your habits and your routines. Does it mean you're a good or bad person? No. Like, can you be incredible at 99% of everything else? Yes. And I know that because, I actually lost a ton of family members of health related complications. My dad was overweight. Like, this is not it's never a judgmental, like, you're not a good person. It's more of, hey, if you're going to coach me in the areas of life, like, I need to know first that you're going to be disciplined, consistent, and you're going to be able to show up and lead me in those ways. And if you're not, there's a little pause for me, whether it's
Right.
coaching, but it's also as a business partner. If I'm going to do deals with you, if I'm going to, be close to you in my life, like I need more discipline to be pushed onto me, not less. And I need people that are going to pull me in that direction.
Well, I think it's also important that, like, yeah, you're right, but it's also about if they're coaching you so heavy in one direction, like there's certain aspects of life, right? There's
Yeah.
business, there's the physical health, there's the mental health, there's spiritual.
Yeah.
If they're going to be your coach, they
Yeah.
can literally change everything about you where it's like,
Yeah.
hey, no longer taking care of your body is important because they're pushing
Mhm.
you so heavy when it comes to business. Why
100%.
do you think entrepreneurs struggle with this? Because I mean, this is like a very common thing where it's like entrepreneurs are so focused on business that we forget about diet and working out. Why do you think that's the case?
We just get really tunnel visioned, and it's a gift. And so I don't think it's all bad. I think our ability to compartmentalize and go all in on one thing it's really what makes us successful. It's what makes us driven and can push really hard towards things. And we can push past the limit of what most people can't take because we're so dialed in on something. However, it becomes a negative when we start to neglect our families, neglect our bodies. Like, I don't think it's just physical that gets neglected. There's just as many stories of people that, like, hey, I made all the money, but my wife hates me and my kids never get to see me.
Right.
Like, that story is just as rampant as, hey, I've made all the money, but my body is, not the way I want it to be and I'm not
Right.
healthy. And so I think it's more of a compartmentalizing thing of we're not good at creating. I don't like the word balance because I think it's more synchronicity. It's how it all plays together. But the word balance is used a lot as we're not good at finding balance. But I think it's more than just the compartmentalization. I think it's also just a lack of awareness of what that does. We think that, hey, once I get my business at this point, then I can focus on it. But oftentimes that one thing is the thing that's holding you back from getting your
Right.
business to the place you want. It's not for everybody because some people are like, well, my business is crushing and my body's like, doesn't matter. I would usually ask, like, well, where would your business be if you weren't carrying that anchor around. Like I
Right.
always ask people, like, what would happen if your body was a weapon instead of an anchor? And that perspective shift of like, like instead of carrying it around, it was a tool for me. That could be pretty cool. So I think it's compartmentalization, but I also think it's just a lack of awareness or priority that people think that like, this thing's not affecting me that much, but it affects you way more than you think.
But I think going back to your previous answer where you're talking about that tunnel vision of like what's important.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a very valid point here because a lot of the listeners here and a lot of people in our community, they're getting started. They're in like the infancy of their entrepreneur journey. And there's this narrative that they tell themselves, which mind you, I'm guilty of this. So I completely understand where you're coming from, where it's like, hey, I'll get there as soon as, but we never really say what it is that we're aiming for. It's like when everything's perfect, and it's like, just so you know, it's never going to be perfect. So from that perspective, what can someone do when they're getting started to like not neglect certain parts of their journey here, like health and fitness?
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, like I was the same person when I was first starting my health coaching business. I was finishing my master's. I had a lot going on, working, like doing sales for a company. Like I had more hours on my plate than I had in the day. And I was the guy that literally was running a health coaching business, recording workout videos, and then didn't actually do the workout myself. Like I did like 2 sets and then I left and I was like, I got to go work. So I've been there too. I've fallen in that same trap, but I've realized how much different I feel whenever I take care of myself and how much more productivity I get. Like obviously we'll talk more of that, but I think for people getting started, the best recommendation I give is to look into the future and ask, who is the person I'm really trying to become? Like, do I want to become the overweight rich person? I don't think so. Like, is that really the life that I want to create? Is that the identity that I want to have? Or do I want to be the person that is crushing in a business but feels terrible, like isn't enjoying their life? And so for me, asking this question of who do I want to become has really allowed me to look forward in the future and be like, you know what? Like, it's not worth it to make, another 20% increase in my business if my family hates me. Like, I would actually rather have less money, or it's not worth all this stress, or it's not worth gaining all this weight or feeling terrible or getting sick, or, really asking myself, like, what is it worth and what cost am I having? And most people can't do that unless they look into the future and ask, who am I becoming? If you just look today, like, oh, this meal is not going to make a difference, or skipping this workout is not going to make a difference. But if you ask, hey, 3 years from now, if I keep going in this direction, what happens? It kind of changes that perspective.
But imagine if we told ourselves the same stories using those 2 excuses, which I call it excuse plus a story.
Sure.
Okay? So in this case, imagine if we showed up one day and we said, hey, we're not going to talk to any sellers today because, I'm not going to try and dispo that property I have under contract because, I just want to be lazy today. I mean, we don't make those decisions. If you are, well, then you're on the next level. Like, you need a lot more coaching. But we don't make those excuses, but we choose to do this when it comes to health. And I compared our interview this morning to the interview I had with Brad Chandler, where it was about mental health, like just things that we don't want to talk about. We don't even want to pay attention. When I met you, what really stood out to me was your story on how you got here. Because a lot of times when I've talked to people that do similar things to you, it's like, dude, I just really like working out. I'm like really good at it. Look at me, and your story is way different. So explain why you are so passionate about what you do.
Totally. Yeah, it's pretty common. Most fitness people, and this is really any area, so it's not a judgment, they just were really good at it and found success, and then this is my area. And I looked really good. I've genetically always been athletic, and so now I'll just teach other people. For me, it was much more of a passion that came out of pain. And I told the story, and that's what you heard of. The reason why I'm so passionate about health is not because I love fitness. That's a part of it. I love looking good. I love feeling good. Like, it's a passionate topic. I also played college sports, and it's been part of my whole life. But the reason that I'm really driven and passionate about it is all the loss I've gone through. And so I've lost every single one of my family members except for an uncle. So almost all of them from health-related complications. My mom, my dad, grandpa, uncle, every man my family's had heart attacks. It's something that's very rampant for me. And so especially the heart attack piece is like, this is something that we can control, genetic or not. Like I can live my life different. And so having gone through all of that loss, specifically my dad, who is my best friend and, role model, and someone that, for me was like the epitome of, hey, this is what it looks like to be a good man. And to lose him was kind of devastating for me. And it really shifted my perspective. And it's what drives me is like, man, first off, I don't want my family to go through that. And so I'm going to be the one to stop this here, because his dad passed away at a young age too. His brother passed away at a young age, it's my lineage of heart attacks that end life early. And I'm like, this is not happening for me. I stopped this here. But it also drove for me is like, man, I don't want other families to go through that. I don't want others to miss out on the impact they could be making or miss out on the life they're supposed to live. But even more importantly than that, like while they're here, I don't want people to miss out on the life they should be living too, because it's not just about being around, it's about living a full life. And so for me, health is not just abs and biceps. It's like, man, am I going to be around for my family? Am I going to show up the best I can for the people that I care about and the people I'm supposed to impact?
Yeah, man. I lost my dad when I was 28, and I had my son when I was 28. Wow. And my dad had me when he was 28. So 28, kind of a common denominator there, right? Yeah. So I always think about my son is turning 11 in 2 days.
Yeah.
We share a birthday. So he's turning 11. I'm like, that's 17 years away from when my dad passed away. Mm-hmm. I talk to my employees about this. I've got a lot of young guys, 21, 22 years old. I'm like, I still feel like I'm in my 20s.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I do not feel like I am potentially 17 years away from death. Yeah. Like, I got a lot more left in the tank, bro. Mm-hmm. Like, this is so from that perspective, I think you and I resonate together where that loss, that tragedy, because my dad, huge sports fan, like my whole life. My dad's the only really guy that I could ever talk about sports with, because we understood it the same. He taught me everything I know about sports.
Yep.
And it's like, I've lost that for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I look at my son and I can see we're developing the same relationship. And it's so important where it's like, I've got to get on track here. It's great. I can close as many deals as possible. Sure. Who gives a shit if in 17 years I'm dead? No.
Yeah, what's it all really matter? Doesn't. Right. Yeah.
So at what point in time did you look at the tragedy and say, like, this is how I'm going to overcome that? Like, because a lot of guys, like, mind you, I'm also in a family where heart disease runs rampant.
Yeah.
It's scary. That's like, I mean, we can look at our arms and be like, I'm doing good. You can't look at your heart and be like, I'm doing good. So how did you decide, hey, this is what I'm going to do to overcome?
Yeah. I've always been what you could call like an impact-driven person. I was a pastor for years before I ever got into coaching. I'm personality-wise driven towards that. Is like, I want to help people. I want to be in front of people. I want to lead and serve. So that was always like innately wired in there. But for me, I think everybody has a decision point to make whenever they go through tragedy or loss of like, what am I going to do with this? Like, which direction am I going to go? Some people choose to let that derail them. And it's like, hey, that guy was doing great, but then, poor guy, major tragedy. We all feel bad for him. But it's the people that decide to be like, hey, I'm going to use this instead of letting it derail me. I'm going to use it as fuel, and it's going to propel me into something. That's the people that we really hear about, and it's the stories we're inspired by. And so I think I had the, from encouragement from people and amazing, friends that kind of came into my life, plus my relationship with God, really to be able to lean into that. I had the wherewithal to really ask the question of like, hey, what am I going to do with this? Like what I always ask two questions: is how am I going to be defined, and what am I going to leave behind? Like, that's my question I always ask through all types of hard situations: is how am I going to be defined? Like, what person am I going to be out of this? Am I going to be the quitter, or am I going to be the person that, in spite of that, I pressed on, or I fought, I kept pushing? And then what I want to leave behind is like, what lessons can I use to teach other people? And that's really where that kind of thing came for me, is like, man, like if this affected me so much and it's changed my life and it's changed the trajectory of my family, how could I leave behind in my short life something that would maybe prevent this for others? So answering those two questions for me of like, what kind of person am I going to be out of this? How am I going to be defined? And then what am I going to leave behind? Like, how can I use this to serve other people? Really kind of shifted that perspective. And then that's, very quickly after that, I started, well, maybe I should just start helping people do the same thing.
So we both coach people on very
Mhm.
different topics.
Sure.
And I've had people, come up to me and say, like, RJ, man, you changed the trajectory of our family
It's amazing.
financially.
Yeah.
But I was in a room where multiple people told me that without you being around,
Wow.
changed their life. How do you handle that? Like, because you talk about how you're defined and what you're going to leave behind.
Sure.
I mean, dude, you're literally like, you've got grown men saying, like, I was on a path to like die.
Yeah.
And Cole saved my life. I mean, how does that, first of all, how do you handle that? Because another thing we don't ever talk about, specifically men, how do you handle success? Right.
Sure.
And then emotionally, how do you kind of consume that and then also use it for good?
Well, get emotional just hear you saying that. Man, I think the biggest key is just realizing it's not about me. Like, not that I didn't help them personally, but there's so many other people that were involved in it. Like, I was just a tool. Like, I planted a seed, I maybe helped water and nurture it, but our team, helped that. They had friends and family that have encouraged. Like, it wasn't just me. They can attribute it to me, but there's so many people that were involved. And honestly, like, in our coaching, our team is so much smarter than me. Like, if it was just me, like, maybe I would have been able to help them get most of it. But like, just our doctors, we have our nutritionists, our trainers, my business partner are so much smarter than me in health. Like, they coach me. They're why I stay healthy. And so I just keep that in perspective. Like, it's not about me. Like, that's why I do it anyways. I'm just here to like plant a seed and serve. And I think handling a success, like, once you realize like this is not a me thing, this is just like, I'm just we say this in our company all the time, is what I'm a part of is bigger than the part I play. Like, my part is nowhere near as big of what I'm a part of. And so I always keep that perspective. And some of that's just ministry wired to me is like, dude, I did the same stuff for almost free for so many years. Like, it's a perspective shift that just comes with humility. But also it just, like, frankly, just feels really good too. Like, putting that aside, like, man, I love it. Like, that's why I do it, to hear things like that. It's not about, it's not about the money. I mean, of course I love making good money and I love running a business and the freedom an entrepreneur and the lifestyle provides. But like, that's why I started a health coaching company, not, some sort of other business that wasn't service based. Like, I could have started a product or could have, gone in the real estate space, not on the coaching side and, just done my thing. But to me, like, I chose this business because I wanted to change lives and serve people. And so it's not about me, but also just, it feels really good too. And because that's why I did it.
Might sound like a weird question at this time, but there is a purpose behind it.
Sure.
What sport did you play in college?
Football.
Yeah. So a team sport. Your answer right there very much proved that it was you come from being a part of a team background.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think impacts your ability right now to like lead this team of people that you proclaim are smarter and better than you at what you do?
Oh, all of it.
Yeah.
Or, a big majority. Obviously, working in a church too is very similar. Like, the goal was just to gather people and, like, it's very volunteer driven. And so I'm trying to get hundreds of people to work for me for free. Like, it's a different thing, but football taught me so much about life and business, specifically the team stuff. But like, playing receiver, dude, if quarterback doesn't do well, if the offensive line doesn't block, like, I get nothing. Like, I've been in those situations where you are wide open over and over and over again and getting no targets. And it's like, this is the stupidest thing ever. And so once you start to realize, like, if each person doesn't do their job, nothing happens. And so that was definitely ingrained in me because I played since I was a little kid. But for me too, like, I actually truly mean that. Like, it's not even a humility thing. Our team, like, I'm not allowed to hands-on one-on-one coach people anymore. And I say that jokingly, I can, but like, I don't, because they're so much better than me. Right. And I joked the other day too, someone was, the guy in his 60s, he was like, man, like, you're pretty young. Like, are you sure you know what I'm like, dude, honestly, like, I'm the youngest person in our company by far. We've got coaches in their 50s and 60s that have been doing this for longer than I've been alive. Right. Like, oh, really? Like, how does that work? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just the young guy that talks a lot and has a good vision. And they kind of, so Football definitely ingrained that in me because without others, like we're not going to go very far.
An example of that, last night, Dallas Cowboys are on Monday Night Football.
Yep.
There's a play to win the game. Tony Pollard, the starting running back, he does a stop and go route and just completely burns the linebacker. Mm-hmm. Wide open for the game-winning touchdown. Dak Prescott overthrows him by about 2 yards. Now, because I live here in Dallas-Fort Worth, I've literally seen 10-plus posts on social media about, can we all agree Tony Pollard is not a first-string running back? We made a mistake by getting rid of Zeke. And I'm like, no, guys. He was wide open for the game-winning touchdown. Yeah. Uh-huh. Like, to your point, if one person on the team doesn't do their job, it lets the whole team down. I can tell that through your answer there, and I love that we got to go down that little rabbit trail.
Well, you can take it further too, because I didn't see that play, but Dak could have messed up because his left tackle missed his block, right? Rush and throw, and the left tackle could have messed up because the offensive line coordinator or whoever calls the plays put the wrong signal in, and it all is a chain of if one person misses their assignment, it blows it for everybody, and it could lose the game off of one misplay.
I love that. I am going to say it was all Dak. But on that,
it was Dak. He's done.
Good point. But Dak, you need extreme ownership. Okay, it's somewhere on the bookcase. It was you, bud.
Yeah.
So all right. Let's talk about the starting line. What does this look like for an entrepreneur? Because you talked about like doctors, like blood tests. Yeah. Like, dude, this is way deeper than some of the bullshit I've signed up for. Like, I gave you some examples. Like, I gave a guy some money, and he literally was like, "Okay, go down MyFitnessPal app," and that was it.
Yeah. He was like, "I'll see you next month."
Yeah, he's like, "Eat a bunch of protein and like follow the workouts," and I'm like, "Yo, like." You're like, hey, like the first thing we do is like you're gonna have like blood tests and all this, and I'm like, holy cow! Yeah. Oh, you're actually gonna get to know what my body needs. Like that's pretty cool. So talk about that for a second.
Yeah, and to reiterate why we do this is because I don't care just about abs and biceps. Like that's where I'm even always hesitant to say we're a fitness company. I always say it's kind of health concierge, functional medicine meets fitness, just because it's like it's not just fitness. Like I'm not just giving a workout nutrition program. That's a secondary thing. Because I don't care just about how you look. It's internally making sure you're healthy. Because I know so many guys that have had heart attacks and looked really good too. Like it's not just being overweight. And so
actually, pause real quick. We were both at an event where Hulk Hogan spoke. He literally said that he gave an astronomical number for like one NFL death. There's like 300 professional wrestler deaths.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you go look at a professional wrestler and it's like, they are perfect. Mm-hmm. Like they're a Greek god. Like, so yeah, just to kind of reiterate, because we were both there and we got to hear that. So
it's wild. And so because of that, and because I understand that, and also because again, my background of losing so many people, I don't want to just get someone in shape. I want to make sure they're healthy inside. Like I don't want to just paint the Ferrari. I want to make sure the engine functioned well too.
Right.
And so because of that, our process is really threefold. One is we get testing done. Like everything begins off of testing. We want to actually truly understand what the person needs. And if someone's listening to this, like first recommendation I would ever give if you're going to make changes in your health is to get data. Because it's like, I really believe great data leads to great decisions. If I'm going to change things in my business and I'm going to change my marketing strategy, I can't do that without numbers. I can't just be like, well, I'm just going to spend more on ads. Well, what if you're like, if your cost per acquisition is trash right now, you're just going to be wasting more money. Like that may be not the move. And so with our bodies too, we need to understand what's actually going on. Not only does that allow us to fix the things that are really going on so we can be healthy, but also allows us to speed things up. Like if you actually know what your body needs training wise, you know what your body needs food wise, you know what supplements you need, like it saves a lot of guesswork and pain. Like it's like taking a Lego box out of its thing and not using the instructions. Can I still build it? Sure. Like, can I still get in shape and get healthy? Yeah, but it's going to be way harder and it's going to take way longer. And I may not get there. It's possible. And so for us, data is so important. So we get hormones tested. We understand cortisol and testosterone and how they all play together. We look at nutrient deficiencies like, B vitamins and D and iron, like what's going on in there. We look at gut health. How is your body processing foods, which that's the most underrated one. Most guys are like, I don't really care about my gut. Like, digestion, whatever, who cares? It's bloating. That's a girl thing. But we don't understand that our brain and gut are directly connected. And there's a nerve called the vagus nerve, which I think Brad talks about this some too, because he talks about the brain, how it processes. But the vagus nerve, how in our gut directly connects to our brain, which basically means the food I eat directly correlates to how my brain performs. 80% of serotonin, the happy hormone, the peaceful hormone, is actually produced in your gut too. And so we push this stuff so hard. It's like, dude, if you're not eating good, you're going to be stressed, anxious, your brain's not working well. And so looking at hormones, nutrient deficiencies, gut health, we look at how your metabolism's working as well. And once we have all that data, that's really phase one. Then we have a team of, like you said, doctors, nutritionists, and trainers. You have a whole health team that builds a customized protocol off of that. So we say, hey, because we have all this data, here's the foods you need to eat, here's the workouts you need for your body. And it's not just like, hey, here's the basic workout program everybody gets. Like, some people need more high intensity cardio, some people more steady state, some people, like for me, they had me doing no cardio for a while because my stress was so high. And so it was just workout, like lift weights and do steps. You're not allowed to do cardio for this season. So it's very custom to the person, even as deep as like sleep routines, and, people need hormone replacement or some sort of medication, which we're really trying to avoid that as much as possible, unless it's like a red alert, like you're going to die or this is going to cause you terrible issues unless you fix it. So once we do that, we've got the testing, we've got really custom protocols from our team. Then our goal, because, I told this on the stage as well, because our audience and our people are very similar to the mastermind that we're at. My guess is a lot of, the real estate entrepreneurs that are following you are similar to this. Because our people are so busy, we can't just throw, here's 800 things to do every day. We treat them like we would our own people. It's like, hey, we got to do this for you if you're going to get results. And so we act like their health executive assistant, essentially. We run a concierge side to what we do, that we send them all the food, we send them all the supplements, we order the testing for them, we coordinate everything while they travel. Like, some of those clients there that you saw, like they had protein shakes waiting in their, hotel room, or, they were telling us, hey, I don't, the lunch here is not great. Like, and we send them an Uber Eats, like whatever we needed to do, we coordinate. So the testing, then we build a protocol, and then from there we put it on autopilot with our concierge service, so that it's like great results, not very much time and effort, except for just move your body and eat the food we send.
Dude, when you told me that about the food, because for me, the food has always been the hardest part.
It always is. Yeah.
Like, one guy that I hired, I got pretty good results, but I plateaued again, probably because we didn't do testing.
Sure.
So we didn't know what my body actually needed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I dropped down probably 25 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably another 20 pounds away from the goal weight that
Yeah.
I set. And then I just plateaued. And I
Mhm.
just kept doing the exact same thing. And, then I started having like actual issues where
Yeah.
like I was like, hey man,
Mhm.
like I'm
Can't do
hurting.
this anymore. Yeah.
Like, I'm like actually physically, like whatever I'm putting in my body is not working, but not being able to find the food that he wanted me to eat
It's hard.
was like, dude, like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but sometimes when I go to Tampa, Florida for a mastermind, like I
Uh-huh.
can't find the pink Himalayan salt only
Yeah.
or my wild caught salmon. Like, I don't know if it was wild caught or not,
Yeah.
like very specific things like that. So when you were talking about, hey man, we really take care of our clients, that was on a whole nother level for me. Now, very specific question, but I think this is common for someone like me. I don't feel bad. I talked about it earlier. Like, I feel like I'm in my 20s. This would almost be like, I know at some point in time, if I don't make a change, I will stop feeling the way that I'm feeling.
Right.
But how do you get someone like me to stop and say, RJ, do it now before bad things start happening? Because how do we stop the mindset that we've had for a decade where it's like, nah, dude, I'm just going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's two questions. First off, before I give kind of the main statement, I end every one of my talks like this too. But before I say that, the question I really like to ask is, okay, like you say you feel good and this is what you're doing right now. My question is, if you fix it, like how much better would you feel? Like it almost has to be a perspective shift of like, if I feel fine like this, and I'm smart enough to know that like junky food probably doesn't make you feel as good. Like just for me, because I've gone through it plenty of times too. There's a season after I played football where I ate like trash and gained a ton of weight, gained like 40 pounds because I wasn't working out anymore. I was eating large pizzas. Like I've been there, and I didn't feel terrible. I mean, like I wasn't happy how I looked, and I could tell that there was like some weird digestion, and like, but I'm good. I'm still young. But once I like have compared it to how I feel now, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I feel so much better. My body feels incredible. And I think usually asking people, it's like, dude, if you feel good right now, I think it's one of those things is like, you just don't know what you don't know. Like you're accustomed to this. Most entrepreneurs also say, I'm not stressed, but then they start having anxiety attacks or their body starts responding to the stress. And the doctor's like, well, you actually really are. We're so good at convincing ourselves we're not. And so I think it's a perspective thing of like, you have way more available to you, but also the phrase I like to use all the time is wake up before your wake up call. Like I am not going to be the person that makes decisions once the pain has gotten so great that I have to change. Like I need to be in control of my life. And so I'm always like, dude, wake up before your wake up call, before the heart attack happens. Like it did for my family, like wake up now so your family doesn't have to go through that, or you don't have to go through that. Yeah. Or, hey, before your wife threatens to leave you, like wake up now, fix the relationship. Or before your kids are out of the house and you missed all that time for that relationship, like wake up now. And so that perspective of like, hey, if I choose to embrace a little bit of pain now, it's going to save me from a lot of pain in the future. Or I can just keep doing what I'm doing and be like, I'm okay. Eventually it'll catch up to me. Like I just don't want to live the what if eventually. Like I want to control and know that I'm controlling the direction of who I'm becoming.
Makes a lot of sense. And, you're right. Entrepreneurs have the ability to convince ourselves of so many different things.
I'm fine. Yeah.
I mean, even when like, let's just not even talk about health and fitness, just on the marketing side, what you were talking about, where it's like, hey, the marketing is not working. Let's just dump more money into it. Instead of sitting back and saying, hey, let's analyze the data and maybe our idea wasn't correct. Maybe we should do something else. Sometimes we just don't want to admit that we're wrong. So I sign up, I do the starting line, and all this, blood tests, you put together this plan. Is this like a forever relationship? Because it feels like it is, right? Like I don't feel like this is like one of those things where, hey, you're going to fix me in 6 weeks and then I never hear from Cole again.
Yeah. It's not a 90-day program where it's like, hey, we got you shredded. See you later.
Right.
I think in some sense it should be like, I think you always forever need that, at least the testing piece. Like I think for the rest of your life, you need quarterly hormone panels done. Like that's just a thing that I tell all, especially men. I think everyone in general, but specifically men, like you need to be seeing this on a consistent basis. For us, it's typically like, let's get you through the first year. And then at the very least, like, you need to continue to do testing and we can be around to support in that. Like if you don't want us to continue to coach you, that's fine. If you don't want us to continue to send you all the stuff and you feel you're pretty good, that's okay. But most people, like, even if it's not through us, I'm like, you please keep getting testing. Please meet with the doctors. That stuff is so vital to you continue getting health done. And so at some point, like, this is a lifestyle commitment of I'm committing to focusing on my health. I'm committing to continue to have this data because I also believe like I can't fix what I won't face. And it's the same thing in business. But for me, if I don't get that data, I start to like, oh, I'm good. I get back in that position. And so for you too, like, or people that are in that spot of like, I feel really good. Like I'm great. And it's not that bad. Once you start to see that data and the doctor's like, oh my gosh, like red flag alert. You're like, but I feel fine. They're like, you're not fine. This is like, it's, in 2 years, this will cause you a major issue. It allows you to see those things, which keeps that perspective.
So I am around a ton of entrepreneurs. Mainly, let's just talk about men, okay? Because you brought up men, and so this is going to be about that hormone testing. 30, 40, 50-year-olds. Very rarely talk about health, fitness, hormone testing. But man, if I'm around men entrepreneurs in their 20s, they talk about this all the time. Why? Where did this come? Why is that generation like, hey, like one of my one-on-one mentees is like, hey, I went and got tested for, testosterone. I'm doing TRT therapy now. And I'm like, this dude's jacked. Like he works out all the time. Like, he wears the shorty shorts so he can show
Yeah.
off his quads because he's like, hey, if I'm
Guys out, thighs out. Let's go.
he's like, if I'm gonna squat 600, I mean, I gotta show it off, right?
Mhm.
Why do you think that generation, this is more important to them than like 30 plus year old entrepreneurs?
I think it's because of a lot of what's becoming popular on social media. There's a couple guys specifically on YouTube, you know, they have big Instagram audiences too, that are just incredible at education, specifically like Andrew Huberman. If you've heard of the Huberman Labs and that podcast, like just brilliant guy, talks a ton about hormones. There's a guy named Derek of a channel called More Plates, More Dates. That just, these are massive influencers in the space that teach this stuff, and it's become very prevalent. And I think our, you know, that 20 to 30 or young 30, and even some of the like out of high school guys are seeing so much of this, and they're starting to see the value. Some because those guys do a really good job of showing like the negative effects of not getting a fix, and, you know, people that have died because of issues, or, you know, how much it improves things. Like, just because of the awareness, people are starting to realize how much of a big deal it is. And I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's good that young people are starting to see that. So, you know, even if they don't need, which in your 20s, you shouldn't need any sort of hormone help. But when you turn late 30s, early 40s, maybe mid 40s, like, they're already aware and they've been getting testing, and they're able to see, or they're able to fix it so they never got to that place in the first place. So I love it.
I could only imagine if I got 30 seconds with my dad, and all I could do is explain to him what I did today.
Mhm.
And I told him, yeah, I have a podcast now, Dad. And I actually interviewed a guy, and he said every man should get hormone testing
Mhm.
quarterly.
Yeah.
Like, the look that he would give me, you know, he would be like in his mid-60s, he'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Hormones, men, you know, like, and you're like, hey, specifically men,
Yeah.
like every quarter. Why are you saying that? Like, what is it about men and their hormones that they need
Sure.
quarterly testing on it?
Yeah, and honestly, it's women too. I just, you know, I'm typically talking to men when I talk,
Right.
and so I push that a little harder. But we, you know, our hormones are, to me, it's like one of the most underrated things, because your hormones are so interconnected to every single part of your body. Like, for example, like if you're trying to lose weight and you want to be healthier, and losing weight is a big part of that for you, but you have high cortisol levels, which every single one of our clients do. I do. Our doctor gives me crap every time. They're like, you chill out, big guy. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, it's just a normal thing because we're so driven. But cortisol, this is a hormone. It's a stress hormone. When cortisol goes up, your metabolism goes down. Like, it's a direct, like, arrow. It's inverse relationship. Right. As I increase cortisol levels, I cannot burn as many calories, but it also increases hunger. So there's another hormone called ghrelin that is your body's physical response to say I'm hungry. So when cortisol goes up, ghrelin goes up as well. Third thing is insulin resistance increases as well. So you get more cravings and you can't process carbs and sugar. So I use that as one example. Like, if why hormones are so important is, like, if I'm more stressed than I think I am, my body's producing too much of that chemical. And it's not always just stress. It could be like your body's just not in the right rhythm, like your circadian rhythm is off, and you're producing too much at the wrong time, which you can fix that with certain lifestyle and supplements. But if that's happening, you're not burning as many calories because your metabolism isn't working. You're hungrier, and you're getting cravings and not processing carbs and sugars and all that. Like, you could be eating less, you could be moving more, you could be crushing it, but you're in so much stress that you're like, why am I not seeing progress?
Right.
That one little hormone sabotages everything. And so for me, I think it's so important to know those things, because then instead of just like, dude, you just got to starve yourself. Like, you keep eating less, 1,500 calories. It's like, dude, I weigh 220 pounds. Why do I need to eat fit? You shouldn't. Like, I'm 210, and I've had coaches in the past that are like, you know, 1,600 calories now. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's what a 140-pound girl should be eating,
right,
when they're on low calorie diet, not like. And so once you understand that your hormones affect all of that, you know, same for testosterone, specifically for guys, girls need it as well, just different balance. No energy, no sex drive. Like, you're not going to lose fat or gain muscle. Like, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to be motivated or driven. You're going to have anxiety. And so those things literally sabotage your whole body if they don't function well. And so for me, that's why it's so important. Like, you got to get that stuff tested, because you'll fix the issue instead of just beating your head against the wall.
It's really crazy you bring that up. Isn't cortisol what your body produces when you do like the HIIT workouts?
Yeah. So, and that's why it's so interesting to understand where you're at health wise and what your body needs, because some stress is good. Like, it's like, it's not bad to have stress. Like just you working out in general is a stressful thing on your
Right.
body, but some stress is like called eustress. It's a certain type of stress is actually good and promotes adaptation for your body. But there's a line where the level gets too high that it actually starts to do damage. That's why I even say the same thing in fitness. Like I'm running a 100-mile ultra marathon in December. That's
Oh,
not honestly, that's not a healthy thing. Like there's a
right.
line of fitness where it's like, okay, now we're just damaging our body. It's the same thing with our stress is once we reach a certain point, it becomes damaging. So for me, that's why I told you, like for my last training period of just aesthetics and health, it was bodybuilding workout, like just strength training and walking. They wouldn't have let me do HIIT training because my cortisol was so high from all the travel and all the stress I was holding that were there. You're not allowed to do that. Like that's going to push you over the edge. You have to stay steady state, just
Right.
walk. So yeah, there's good stress and bad stress, but if you don't know what you need, then people actually end up working out too hard. And we've got clients that like, I work out twice a day. I hit my calories, but I'm not getting results. And we're like, yep, you're going to work out once a day and you're not allowed to do cardio anymore. And they're like, what? And they get in way better shape and feel good. And they're like, oh, this is amazing. I don't have
Yeah.
to work out as hard.
It's funny that you bring it up. Look, I used the example of where I plateaued. I'm wondering if it was just because my cortisol levels were out of the roof, because that's basically what he had me doing was HIIT workouts every single day. And then I plateaued. And what I told you, I felt like shit.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, I felt better like 25 pounds ago. Like, can I go back to being fat? Like, I'm hurting over here, bro. Like, this is not good. It's crazy.
Yeah. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah. If you know what you're doing, and that's the beauty of the testing, is if you know what's happening inside, and honestly, like it could have been a ton of things. You could have just had some nutrients you're deficient in. That's why your energy levels are terrible. You could have honestly been like just resistant to, I think you said you were doing pretty heavy ketogenesis. Like some people at some point don't need that. Like your body actually needs carbs. Carbs are like, I could talk an hour about why your body needs carbs. But all I have to say is like, if you don't know what you need, that's why to me, I see this with every other coaching company, that even the ones I'm friends with, and not to hate on them, if they're not good at making those adjustments and knowing specifically what someone needs, anybody can get results in the first 60 to 90 days just by eating less and moving more. That's not hard. You just stop eating as much and you start moving, you'll see progress. But if I want long-term results and I want to break past the same 20 pounds I've always lost, I got to know specifically what my body needs, because then I can fix those things that actually stop you to plateau.
I love that. And it's funny you talking about the ultra marathon that you're running. So I'm the guy that, made his name for doing 50 deals in 50 states in 50 days live on YouTube.
It's cool.
Well, come to find out, there's a guy that wrote a book, and he actually did this where he did 50 triathlons in 50 states in 50 days.
Yeah.
And I read his book, and
full Ironman.
Like, dude, he almost killed himself.
Yeah. I know James really well. I was just texting him yesterday. This dude is a freak. It's unreal.
It was actually painful listening to the audible version of that book. Because, and I've said this before, I'm like, dude, you go watch my day one of my 50-day challenge where I was literally just sitting down at a desk and just working 8 hours a day. I'm like, and then you go to day 50, like, I looked like I actually was a presidential candidate through my 4-year run. Where it's like I aged, like I looked so exhausted. Where I was just like, I'm beaten down, bro.
Yeah.
If I get cussed out by one more motivated seller saying, "How'd you get my information?" And I'm like, this dude went to 50 states and ran 50 triathlons.
50, and that's like a 13-hour a day of fitness of 26. Well, it's like a 2-point-something mile swim, 26.2 mile run, like a full marathon, 100-mile bike, like 13 hours of intense exercise a day, 50 days in a row.
He was literally talking about at times where he couldn't even feel his legs while he was cycling. Like
he fell asleep on the bike multiple times. Just falls over, and they had crashed a couple times. Wild.
It's crazy.
Well, so he did after that. His next challenge was 100 days in a row, not in different states, but just at his home, same course, did 100 in a row. He had gotten so much in a routine that he went out the 101st day and went again. And his team was like, stop, you don't have to go. And he did 101 days back to back.
Jeez.
Wild.
It's crazy. Insane. That cannot be healthy for him.
No, not healthy for him at all.
It's crazy. So how can people find out more about your program, and then also talk about specifically for the people that are part of the titanium community, kind
Yeah.
of what you're going to offer to those people.
Yeah, two things I want to do. One, for just anyone that's watching this, I'd love to give a free resource to them. I love giving people just easy action steps. So if you're listening to this and you're wanting to, hey, I'm hearing what Cole says, I want to start taking my health seriously. The first place you start is your meals and your movement. Like, unless I'm going to get testing done for you or I'm going to teach you all that, that's too much for me to talk about unless, I have a lot more time. And that was the only topic we talked about. Like, I don't have enough information or time to be able to guide you through that. And so if that's what you want, like, I can help you with the testing. Like, we can connect on that. But if you just want a quick, easy action step that you can fix now, what you put in your body and you moving consistently is a great foundation for anybody to start. And so I'm going to give it just a free document, a full protocol written off. That's how do I set up my calories for what my body needs? What food should I be eating? And then as well as some workout programs to follow based off of your goals. And so I'll give that free document away. I think it's probably best rather than just me saying a link. As you just
I'll just put it in the show notes.
Yeah, so he'll put that free document in there for you. Just click it. It'll come to a video of me explaining it and just put it in your email and we'll send it to you. And so I think that's the easy first place. But those who are in your group, that's where I'm going to give some extra. So if you're not in the group and you listen to this, here's a little extra motivation. I'm actually going to give free access to our app to all of his members, to where you get a workout program that you can actually follow and track, and video demonstrations. You get all of our nutrition resources that are in the app. Like, you can track your steps, you can track your body weight. But the benefit there is actually having a workout program that you can track and you can see, your data over time. And so those are the free resources I'd love to get. But also, people just are like, hey, like, Cole, I really love what you're saying. I probably need all the testing done. I'm happy to connect, and I can give my information in the show notes as well. Yeah. Or if you just want to go to cole360.com, cole360.com, that's got all my contact, all my sites, all my socials as well. Just shoot me a message or go to our site and fill out the application. Any of those, I'd love to be able to talk to you about how we can serve you.
Love it, man. Really appreciate you coming on here. Last question I want to ask you is, where you are in your journey, do you feel like you're on the path to change where you're like that family generational curse of like health disease and all of your family members and everything like that? Do you feel like you are on the path to change that for yourself?
Yeah, I'll give two parts of this answer. One is I do, because I'm so focused on it. And really, I started at a young age. It was, obviously there were seasons where I was like, I don't care about this. But I've been focused on my health and the things I put on my body and moving consistently and getting testing done for, much longer than most people at my age. I started really in high school, and that was because my dad had just passed away, and we're like, all right, we're getting all this done for you now. Right. So because of the intentionality and focus, like, I'm doing everything I can to make that happen. And I believe, because I choose to be positive, I believe it will change that. However, the second part to that answer is, like, even if I can't fix some of the genetic things and I can't fully stop it all, I'm going to do every single thing I can to make sure that it's either delayed or I'm living the best freaking life that I can while I am here. And so I know that there's things in life that, like, I can't control. Like, I can't control the moments that I go, like, that's only in God's hands, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure nothing I do shortens that. And so, even if I were to die at a young age, which I don't believe I will, like, I fully believe I'm going to live a long life, I know that I did everything I could, and the life that I was here for was lived to the fullest, and I'm not going to do anything to sacrifice that.
Well, I love the fact that you're already impacting so many different people, high-level entrepreneurs. Literally, the definition of character is, how you act when no one's watching. But the definition of a legacy is what people say when you're not around.
Wow.
And what people say about you when they don't even know that I've talked to you. They don't even know that I'm interested in working with you or anything. It's like, yeah, man, without Cole, I don't know if I'm still here. Like, man, like, I've lost this much weight. This is where I'm at on my journey. The legacy that you're leaving behind is already there. Now, because you're a wave, like, I've had a wave of football players here. I got to ask you some questions real quick. Where did you play football?
So I played at the University of Tulsa, and then I had 1 year left, and I played while I was getting my master's at a D2 school, the University of Central Oklahoma. So I had 2 colleges.
Okay, so Tulsa.
Yep.
What was your record?
Trash.
When you were at Tulsa? No. Just give me your best record while you're at Tulsa.
Like our team records that we were saying in wins
yeah.
and losses. I'd have to do math. We didn't have any winning seasons while I was there.
Did
So,
you have more than one win?
yes, we had like 2 or 3
You had
wins.
more than one win. You're better than Stratton Brown. Strat Daddy, 1 win his senior year at Fresno State.
We had more than one. We had more than one, but it wasn't like, honestly, we weren't that bad. Like we would play, like we played OU every year just because we're Oklahoma schools.
Right.
We'd be close the first half, and then we just get waxed the second half.
Yeah.
So it was still a good time. UCO was a lot more fun as far as we didn't get raped every time we went on the field.
I give Stratton a hard time. I was super nice to him on the podcast, but then we needed a fill-in for Pardon the Disruption.
Yeah.
And so he set in. And I was like, bro, you should never come sit in after I've interviewed you on the podcast. Because now
all your stuff.
Oh, Mr. 1 win his senior year. This is low-hanging fruit, baby. I can make fun of you forever about this. So I love it. Cole, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man, talking about what it is that you do. I think this is, like, seriously, such an underrated topic for entrepreneurs. We don't talk about it. And I love the fact that you're saying, hey, like, get started early on in your journey. Mm-hmm. Don't wait, because the waiting will never happen. Guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, give us a 5-star review, like the YouTube video, go check out the documents down in the show notes that Cole gave you. It's a great resource. And Cole, looking forward to working with you in the future, man.
Honored to be here. Thanks, RJ. Appreciate it.